All right, welcome. Welcome to our November Garden Talk, Winter Seed Sowing with Master Gardener Dar Hawkins. Today we're going to have a presentation that's in two parts. The first part will be her PowerPoint, and then we are going to actually have a demonstration. So please excuse us if we have a little technology switch in the middle, and I will turn it over to Dar.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'm so glad you could come. My name is Darlene Hawkins. Most people call me Dar. And I've been doing winter sowing for over 10 years. Winter sowing actually started by a woman called Trudy Dindra, and she started in the year 2000. So it's been around a while. It's kind of a proven method. So this information is taken from this site, wintersowing.org. I'll talk more about that after. Okay, so what is winter sowing? It's starting seeds in covered containers in the winter. So it's not doing it outside, we're doing it in containers. It's recycling and reusing available containers. And you'll see there's several kinds of containers that you can use, and it's very easy. In fact, you're going to say it's so easy, either why didn't I think of it, or it's impossible, one or the other. And yeah, so is starting your seeds a problem for you? Most people, if you started seeds at home, you either don't have the room, or some people use a whole special room if you have that much room. You don't have special lights for seed growing. Maybe you have a problem with damp off in the past. Now, damp off is when you started your seeds. They look beautiful, the seedlings are coming up, and then the next day you go in and all the seeds are dead. They just poof, right over, and they die from an infection. So anyway, it's damp off. And or if you want to go on vacation, or like in my case, I go to Florida and I don't have anybody to babysit my little plants that I've started. So this is a way to solve that problem. So you can use styrofoam containers, plastic milk jugs, which is my choice, takeout boxes. Use your imagination, almost anything that has enough room in it and it's deep enough with a sturdy cover, and just something that you can poke holes through. So these are just some samples that I got online. Cheese puff containers. Now, the harder plastic, I think, is harder to use. Sorry, I'm just turning it off. Thank you. Milk jugs, animal cracker jar, it shows. Again, it's the harder plastic. That might be a little bit harder to poke holes through, which you're going to see. Things that you'll need. You need scissors, a good pair. Now, I wouldn't use your Fiskars that you use for sewing, but a good sturdy pair of scissors, duct tape, potting soil. Use a good potting soil, not some cheap thing that's all clay. Okay, use a good potting soil, a permanent marker, and seeds. And there's just a picture. Also, in this picture, you'll see a soldering iron. So some plastic, if you don't want to use scissors, you can heat up a soldering iron and poke holes in your plastic. To me, that's a little harder, but you could do that. Or I've seen where you can use a screwdriver. It has like a plastic handle. You heat the end of the screwdriver over a handle or something and use that heated to poke into your plastic. Again, scissors seems to work for me. Okay, so you have to punch holes in the top and in the bottom. The bottom, of course, for drainage. You want enough holes and make them big enough so that you have drainage like you would in any planter. And then for transpiration on the top, so you get good air exchange for your plants. This is basically how we do it. We cut off the top, leaving a hinge on the side. Then fill your the bottom with a good quality potting soil that's dampened. And the reason you dampen your potting soil is, I don't know if you've ever tried to use dry potting soil. When you pour water on it, it just all goes all over the place, and it doesn't get dampened all the way through. So you dampen it first, then you plant your seeds, and cover it with your damp soil. And then you seal with duct tape. Label and date. Now, I always put the label on before I actually fill the planter with whatever seeds, because do you ever try planting something and then what do you hold it upside down to try to put the date and label on it? No, so I'll label it first. Then you place your containers outside. Now, this is the part why we call it winter sowing, because you can start anytime now that it's cold and put them outside, and the seeds won't germinate until it gets warm enough. So then, as the seedlings emerge, you'll have your little mini greenhouse, and your seeds will grow. Now, because it's cold outside, they won't grow as fast or as large as if you had a nice greenhouse that you were growing them in with temperature that's kept nice and warm, say 85 degrees or 80 degrees, because it's cold. But when the sun comes out and shines on these plastic containers, it warms them, and the warmth is kept inside, and they will grow. Now, seedlings afterwards may be transplanted into pots, so you may want to have enough room to put them in your seed containers. If you just put a few seeds in each of your containers, you might want to just keep your seedlings in the pot that you planted in. So it depends how many seedlings you have coming up, or whether you have to transplant them. Now, this is a picture from this last year when I had pepper plants, and you'll see if you look way to your, if you're looking at your left, you'll see a tomato plant in there. But these are all seedlings that were grown with winter sown. So when they're big enough, you can plant them out into your garden. So you may want them to grow a little bit longer than maybe most people are planting the last part of May. You may wait till the first part of June. Wait till your seedlings are warm enough and your ground is warm, and you have at least 2 mature leaves. Now, these are my plants out in my garden, and you can't see the whole plant. I should have taken a picture from farther back. But as you can see, I had beautiful tomatoes for my winter sown seedlings this year. So the other thing about planting outside like this is there's no need to harden off your plants. If you go to the nursery and you buy your 6-pack or 4-pack, whatever, of say tomato plants, and you get them home, they've been kept in the nursery the whole time and it's been warm. So you'll have to take them outside during the day, bring them back in at night when it gets cool. You do that for at least a week to harden them off so the plants get used to the cooler weather. Well, there's no need to do this because your plants are already used to being in the cold. And also, the other thing you would have, so you just keep your soil moist by adding water, and I'll show you how to do that in the demonstration. And you can do it by either adding water in the container or spraying the water. And then it says for more information, go to winter sown. Now, there's a little problem with this site that I'll talk about at the end. So these are the other sites that you can use. Winter sown, the site has been taken off the air. Apparently, there was a problem. Their license ran out. If you go, these are sites you might want to copy down if you have a minute, because if you go online and just do a search for winter sowing, these sites will come up. Oh, and it looks like I spelled extension wrong, but it's extension PSU@edu. Starting season winter is one in Maryland Grows. These are all educational sites. And I think one of them, Home for the Harvest, was another one started by the Fruity Dandroff that did the winter sown originally. So yeah, I'll just keep that up a minute. It's so easy that probably, like I said, you're going to say, well, it's impossible. My seeds aren't going to grow outside. It's too cold. We don't plant our plants in the garden till the ground is warm. So how can this possibly work? It does work because these are little greenhouses. And how many of you have found that when you're planting your garden, you find little rogue tomato plants coming up and this, well, they've grown in the winter, they grew all winter, didn't they? So just proves that it works. Okay, so in order to sow, you have to find your seeds. This is a terrible picture, I'm sorry. And most of the seeds aren't out now. They will be hopefully probably January. You know, after January, you get all the seed catalogs in the mail and you'll find you'll have all this stuff out. So all I can say is happy gardening. This is basically all there is to it. You come back. We'll go back to this so if anybody didn't get that.
Okay, so I think we'll take questions on what Dar has shown so far, because I was thinking I have a couple.
Okay.
So Dar, I know we have a handout, which I will send out to those folks who registered for Zoom. On the handout, does it say what seeds are good and what seeds aren't? Is there like a
Yes.
list of what seeds work? Because I know you said tomatoes and peppers work.
Yes, let me just kind of go over this. There's a list of vegetables, and I can't agree with all of them. Because on this list that Winterstone put out, they said carrots, corn, parsnips, radishes. To me, those you can direct sow. So when the ground is cool, you can still direct sow those. Now, you could plant your radishes and his lettuces and that and do them this way and have an early crop. You can do that, but I wouldn't transplant them out into your garden. Now I'll read just a few of what they're recommending. Beans, beets, cabbage family here, cabbage, broccoli, kale. Now I have done broccoli and it works very well. And I did cabbage this year. The cabbage was fine, just not a variety that I would ever plant again. But that's a whole other thing. Your chard, Swiss chard, you could do this way. But I think I would just keep it in the container. Start it early as a winter sown and just grow it in that container. These other ones, I don't recommend a lot of these that they have said as far as to transplant out. You can plant them as a winter sown vegetable, but they're not the type of thing like would transplant a radish from the container into your garden. So things like that.
So I wonder too if it depends on where you are, because maybe it's warmer in some areas, so winter sowing helps with some of those. Because to me, that's all like cool season crops that we would do in April or September.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So this is it.
And then I do have a question from the Zoom people. What about flowers? Will it work well? Whoops, I lost the question.
Yes.
Well, does it work well for seeds that need stratification? And I'm also thinking a lot of our wildflowers need stratification where they have to go through that cold, wet season.
Right. And that's one of the flowers I'm going to do as a demonstration. Use stratification. And that's the wonderful thing about it. You don't have to stratify or soak your seeds ahead of time, or when you get to seed that you have to scratch ahead of time so it will germinate. With this, you don't have to, because the moisture in the soil seeps into the seed, and excuse the siren in the background. It's sorry, uncontrollable. Okay. Anyway, the seeds don't have to do any prep because the moisture in the soil sinks into the seed. It's a natural stratification where the seed will break open, and so you don't have to go through anything. Okay, it's when the seed cover is so tough, I guess you'd say, strong, that it needs something special to pop open so the seed can actually germinate. So some types of seeds you have to take like a nail file and cut into the seed a little bit, or other seeds they'll say to soak it and or cool them, and then from soaking it warms them up or it softens them up enough so the seedling can come through.
And actually, there's two things, Dar. Scarification is when you have to do something physical to the seed shell, like morning glories. You have to scratch it or something like that. The stratification is when they have to go through that freezing thawing cycle.
Okay.
So it's usually cool, moist, and some wildflowers actually need multiple years to go through that.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
They should be in some sunlight, especially the morning sun. Yes, and I'll kind of go over that. But as long as you brought it up, yes, I find the east side of my house is the best because I get a lot of west wind and it gets cold and there's a lot of snow that builds up on it. So I put them on the east side of my house or the south side. But I also get a lot of wind swirling around. So make sure you get a spot that, sorry, it doesn't get a lot of wind that's going to blow them over. Because I did have that happen one year. I had them on my deck. We had wind come, big windstorm. It blew some of them right off my deck and they turned helter skelter. But I did get some plants out of them. I was surprised. I thought they were completely gone, but so be warned. Yes.
I thought that's great. Like when you started, I mean, you started in January?
You can start it in January. You can, if it stays cold from now on, you can do it now. But I would start January, February is usually pretty good.
Started 5 months before you put it in?
No, because they won't start growing until they'll get warm enough.
And then how many per container? Do you want like 4?
It depends what you're going to do. Now, if you're going to grow just a few plants, maybe you only want 4 tomato plants or 5 tomato plants. Then you would probably only plant maybe 5, 6, 7 seeds. You want to make sure that some may not come up, that you have enough seeds planted in your container, and it depends on the size of your container. If you're going to grow them in that same container, instead of transplanting any out, then say you put 4 or 5 seeds in there, you only want 1, you're going to have to pull out some of the seeds and just destroy the plants, the seedlings come out. So it really depends on what you're looking to do. If you're going to take the time to transplant them out into 6 packs or 4 packs or something afterwards, then you can plant a lot of seedlings. Just have to make sure that you take them out afterwards and transplant.
All right, so I've got one more question, and then we'll go to your done.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have to keep the snow off the containers?
No, you do not.
Okay.
As the sun comes up and melts the snow, in fact, snow on your container during the winter is an insulating factor. So that's not a problem at all. And as the spring comes and the snow melts, that same sun will warm the inside of the container that melts the snow. So you do not have to keep the snow off. I know before we talked about the flowers that you can winter sow too. That was another question. I didn't really get into it so much, but there's a lot that you can do, like love lies bleeding, if amaranthus, you know that, sweet alyssum, snapdragon, marigold, coxcomb, cornflower, morning glories. And again, with the morning glories, you don't have to break the seed that I know of. I've never tried them. Yes, I have. Actually, I have done morning glories, and I didn't break them to seed. Blanket flower. There's several on the list that you will get, but those are the ones that I've done. I've also done sweet peas, lupins. I've done love in the mist, petunias you can do, and pansies. Those are just a few of the more popular flowers, but it's a lot. You can do almost anything. And from my point of view, if you try it and it doesn't work, you don't have anything to, how much does it cost you? A pack of the seeds. Where if you go out and buy this 4-pack or 8-pack or whatever of plants, it's always more than a pack of seeds. I think a 6-pack of plants now is usually what, $4 or $5? Yes.
Where do they go?
Yeah, that's where you have to have, right. Actually, a lot of, yes. If you look, oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This gentleman wants to know if your plants are big enough, and the ground is still frozen, and you can't plant them outside, you have to transplant them, into containers. Yes, you would. You'd have to transplant them into a 6-pack or 4-pack or some other containers and put them, someplace where they're gonna get light, maybe in your basement, or maybe you have an extra room that you can put them along your windowsills or something like that, so they grow. Yes. I underline them because those are the ones I know really work, and those are the ones I like. So, but no other reason other than that. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Where do we recommend buying seeds? I have no place that I really recommend buying seeds. If there's a better quality seed, I've used seeds from that are very cheap, the ones that you can get, 2 for $1, or Walmart, Dollar Tree. Thing with the seeds from Dollar Tree or any of those that you get cheaper, there's usually less seeds in a packet. But I don't know as if there's any difference in quality. There might be. I guess you have to go with your own, what you're willing to spend and to try.
And just as a reminder, we do have 3 seed libraries now, so you can actually try some seeds from our free seed libraries when we get them going. We have one in the Bergen Library, the Richmond Library in Batavia, and that blue filing cabinet on the porch. So sometime in March, we start stocking up our seed libraries. Thanks, Chris.
And how does it work, Jen? Grab them or?
We actually repackage seeds so they're in smaller amounts, so you don't have 700 tomato seeds.
Right.
And then you just can try a variety of seeds. Yeah, we basically just have people, you can take what you can plant, basically, is what we ask people to do.
Okay.
Yep. And Dar, I think we should move on to the demo so we can get that part done, and then we can do more questions. So if you want to stop your share.
This is perfect. It's perfect.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna start the demonstration. As you see, I've got milk jugs. This is my choice. They're easy to work with. Duct tape, my scissors. I love my handy dandy scissors. Trowel just to move the soil. Markers. These are permanent marker. Some water, so I can put some water in the soil. Okay, and a spray. In my seeds, of course, you have to have seeds. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, oh, thank you very much. Is take care of the jug. I guess probably the first thing I should do before I even put the holes in it is to label. So I've got some tomato seeds here. And these are just for little cherry tomatoes. And always read the back of your packet. Now this says 7 to 14 days to germinate. Obviously, we're gonna have more than that time because they're gonna be outside. Sow depth, 1/4 of an inch. The seed spacing is 6 inches. It'll be less than 6 inches because I'm going to put a whole bunch in this container. And the other things you don't have to worry about either. The row spacing until you plant your plants. And the days to harvest, 65 days. Okay. So it's saying when to plant outside. In this area, it'd be May to June. Now that's when you plant your plants outside. So you don't have to worry about that part. So these are the seeds. So I'm going to label this. I'm going to write tomatoes on the top of the container and on the bottom, because what you'll find is the sun may fade that and you won't know what you've got planted, which isn't a good thing unless you recognize your seedling, your leaves or something. And I'm going to put, I'll put today's date. It's 11/2/23, and I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. And you do this with any kind of container, or even if you're planting seeds at home, not using this method, but seed sowing in your house, you would do the same thing. You'd label and put the date. Okay, so that's done. Now we have to cut into our, make some holes in the container. I'm gonna make some holes on the top, just punching through. Several, just be careful you don't hit yourself. I want blood. This is for the air to transfer through your plants, and also eventually you'll take the top off your container too. Down the bottom for drainage. Several holes. If you were using the hard plastic that we talked about, then I don't think you would do that with the scissors. That's why I prefer this type of thing. You would probably have to use, you know, the soldering iron or some different, maybe a drill to do that. Lots of drainage holes. Because you can always add water easier than when the plants are overwatered and the seedlings are gonna die or your seeds might rot. So make sure you have good drainage. And then we're gonna make our little cover. So right like at the base of where the handle is on here. Gonna cut around. The other thing, these containers, as you can see, are pretty much transparent. Okay, some milk containers that you get are that white color. Those don't work as well. They do work, so I've tried both, but I like the ones that are more transparent. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna moisten the soil. This is a good potting soil, Miracle Grow potting soil it is. But again, don't use the real cheap soil because it's all clay. And why go through all the work if it's not gonna be worth it? Your plants won't grow as well.
Dar, for the potting soil, does it matter, like a lot of potting soils have fertilizer added or some of those water additives for, you probably don't want the water additive one, right? Or the
Probably
absorbing,
not the water absorbing.
or, yeah,
You know, I have used that before, but I don't know as if it makes that much of a difference.
okay,
As far as with the extra fertilizer in, I don't think that matters.
Because the
either,
plants
there's
aren't
not enough in
growing.
it That's gonna
Okay.
burn the seedlings. I don't
okay.
think. Okay, now that I got my hand all dirty, I'm gonna use my trowel. Actually, it needs a little more water. You want soil that's going to like clump in your hand, but not be wet.
So maybe like a rung sponge
Wrong
type
sponge,
thing.
it's a good way to. Kind of hard to judge here because, usually I have a container. That's a little bit easier to mix it in,
And you can do it ahead of
and
time.
I can do it at a time, right, but I thought I would show this, how to do it. See this, if you can see from there, it's clumping a little bit, so it's not overly wet. I'm just gonna use my hand to put it in here. So you need probably at least 2 or 3 inches. You don't want it to be too shallow. I may end up adding a little more water to this, actually.
So Dar, we could do this anytime, or do we wait till like January?
You could do this anytime once it starts getting cold, and it's going to stay cold. Boy, the way the weather's been this year, and we've had snow already. You could probably do it now, but you don't want it to warm up too much in your seedlings, you know, to germinate too much ahead of time. Okay, that's pretty good. Again, you can see that it's clumping, but it's not dripping wet. It's just like a wet sponge that you've wrung out. Okay. Seeds down here. I usually try to open the opposite end of a seed packet from the top, because then you still have all the directions that you can read. You tear off the top, you don't know what you're, you can't always read it. This actually has quite a few seeds in it. More than I thought. So I don't know if anybody can see that, but I'm gonna put all these seedlings in, all these seeds in. Not all of them will germinate, but probably several will. And when they do germinate, you probably want to take some of the seedlings out. You know, pull them out when they're really small so they don't smother each other. But then as they get their two true leaves and they get big enough, that's when you can take them out and transplant. Now, if I didn't want to make that many seedlings, I wouldn't have planted as many seeds. And then take out the seedlings that you don't want. Maybe you only want 1 or 2 plants in here. And then when those are big enough, then you can plant them outside. Do you understand what I mean? You just don't want to overcrowd it. Okay, now I'm gonna put a little more soil on top. I called for like 1/4 of an inch.
So as far as the timing, I mean, if you're starting these outside and you're putting them outside, it seems to me that as long as the weather stays cool, even if the seeds germinate, they're not just gonna take off and grow a
Right.
lot.
Right.
So, you know, in April, when things start to warm up, they'll probably grow more. So they should be pretty close to being ready
Right.
when you're ready to plant them.
With it, they will probably be a little bit smaller.
A little bit smaller, okay?
Than if you grew them in a greenhouse, but they will catch up very fast.
Once you
Okay.
put them in the garden,
Once you put them in the garden, right,
right? Okay.
or transplant them into a container.
So I'm thinking if you
garden or
want to
something.
skip and avoid that transplanting step, can you just leave them in that outside and take the cover off or?
Yes.
And
yes,
you,
could.
yeah, and I'm thinking as it gets warmer, because you said you do start yours in the south, you got to be
Right.
careful not to fry them, right?
Right, and that's when you want to take off the cover, when it starts getting too warm, you take off the cover so you get more airflow. And even take off the tape as it's getting warmer and warmer, take it off and let the air flow into your planter. And actually you want that anyway, because you want a little airflow through the plants. And the plants will strengthen if they have to sway with the wind. It'll make them stronger than if they're just sitting there and there's no wind, and then you put them outside and all of a sudden they're in the wind, they go flop right over. So this is a good thing to do. So before I take this off, I'm gonna spray a little bit so I know there's enough moisture on the top. You don't have to do this if there's enough moisture in your soil, but I just want to make sure. Close it up.
And you covered it with a little dirt.
I put some dirt on, right? I'm making a mess of it.
That's okay.
You know. That's right, that's. Okay, I'm making a mess of this too. Okay, all the way around. I'm sorry, that's not a very good demo. Sometimes I'll do it in 2 or 3 pieces. So try and do it all at once, so it looks a little neater. And that's it, and you put it outside. Now, in the spring, when you're gonna check these every little while to see there's enough moisture. If you see water running down the inside, it's like a terrarium, it's self-watering. The moisture comes out of the soil, comes up in the heat, and then when it cools down, the water will go back into the soil. If there's too much moisture, say you take the cover off, you want a little more airflow and you left it outside and it rained, you need a lot of moisture in there and you want to dry it out, then you might have to take the cover off, let it dry for a little bit. On the other hand, If it's dried out too much, you want to take a spray bottle like this and spray down inside, get more moisture. Or take a watering can of some kind and let the water run down the edge. You don't want to pour it directly in because then you'll drown the flowers. Okay, so, or drown the seedlings. So, just let the water run down the edge. Any questions about that? No? Now, wasn't that easy? Yeah.
Have you used like the completely clear, transparent water jugs? Is that, I mean, I don't know if that.
No, I
that's
haven't,
too
but I don't
much-
see why you couldn't.
Wouldn't let into much sun or anything.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. It's like using, well, a greenhouse is glass and lets all of
Yeah.
the sunlight in and the heat. And then what you see on greenhouses is usually, flaps or something that let the heat out. Lets more airflow in. Let me do one more.
Dar, one question came as far as potting soil. There is like a seed starting mix. Have you ever used
Oh,
that?
No, I haven't, but yes.
I think that would probably be good, yeah.
Very good. Yeah, I don't see why I couldn't. I think it's probably a little more expensive. That's why we always just talk about potting soil.
Right.
But. Okay, now this one I'm going to do morning glories. That's one that normally you'd have to soak the seeds. In fact, it says on the back here, yeah. So an average garden soil in a sunny location after the danger of spring frost, early blooms, start seed indoors in peat pots. Where does it say here? Oh, garden hint, soak seeds in warm water for 24 hours prior to planting. So in this case, you don't have to because they're in the damp soil. So. What if you overwater them? That's when you have to take the cover off, or you open your planter and let it dry out a little bit. That's why you want to have good drainage too. But yes, it is possible to overwater because, again, I was one of those that had the covers off. I had it sitting in a place where water was coming off my roof, went right into the planter. Yeah, killed them. So it happens. The thing is, it doesn't hurt to try. Try whatever seeds you want. Seeds are cheap. Soil's pretty cheap. You know, try it 1 year. If it doesn't work for you, if you don't like it, sorry, then try different kinds. But it's worked for me for years and I love it. So it's morning.
Basically the same technology as a cold frame, maybe.
Exactly.
You know?
It really is.
Yeah,
It's
my
the same
family
thing.
made us like that for years.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
How do you know if it's getting too damp in there?
Well, you could, if you see a lot of water running down, or I don't know if you've ever noticed when you're watering your plants at home, if you lift up a plant and you can lift it right up, it's dry. If it feels heavy, you know, it's probably got too much water. Or at least you can check it, put your finger in and see if there's too much water. You know, if it's too wet, you don't want wet and soggy. This is a good way to get your frustration out. Argument with somebody, with your boss or mate or something.
And you're doing mostly around the top, right?
I do them around the top
And the bottom.
and the bottom.
And please do it safely.
Yes, and please do it safely.
I would wear work gloves because I would stab myself. So Dar, I know you like this type jug. Are there other containers that you have tried that have been pretty successful for you? I'm thinking like takeout containers or something like that.
Yeah, I have tried to take out containers, but I always go back.
You always go
these.
back to the jugs,
Yeah.
okay?
These seem, they're a little bit deeper for one thing. Well, it depends on your takeout container, I think, but, yeah, I think this is my preferred.
Well, I don't know if they let us use plastic takeout containers anymore.
That's true. Well, they have to be recyclable.
Yeah.
Takeout. There's, these containers, most milk comes in the other containers. They're the,
Yeah, so these are
milky
basically,
color.
these are
Right.
basically water.
These are basically from water. These have to be from distilled water.
So ask your family and friends who drink gallons of water in plastic to save their jugs for you.
Right, exactly. The other ones do work, the ones that are the milky color
Right.
work, but I don't think the light comes through as well.
And I think this would be a good project to do with kids too, to get maybe them interested. It's
Oh,
easy. You just, then you can set it outside and they can check on it once a week and
Yes, and talking about checking on it, I found like in the spring, you know, you get antsy to plant your garden and you're getting everything all planned. It's like a cook, you're watching your soup all the time. The more you watch it, the slower things grow. That's, but it's fun because in February, March, we're all getting antsy. Want to plant our garden. This gives you something to do. It feels like you're actually doing something. You're actually planting the garden. Or starting it.
is there a point in the spring that's too late to do this? If you,
I don't think so. I think it depends on the plant.
on the plant,
on the
okay?
plant. Like, I don't think I would start tomato plants in May
Right,
or April even, because then they wouldn't grow enough.
right, in this
go on.
method, yeah.
Yeah, not this method.
And if you waited too late, you wouldn't get any of the stratification. if they-
Right, exactly, yes. We need that time for stratification in particular plants, so.
So a good January snowy project day and then you just wait until spring.
Excellent January, February project. Okay. Never thought to bring paper towels up here, something. All right.
That's good.
Any other questions while I'm putting these morning glory seeds in?
Let me check. Check soon.
Question in the back, yes.
I've heard about the winter pansies. Are there other ones that you can put out more over the winter?
I can't answer that. Winter pansies. Oh,
There's
thank
water you
you.
can use for your.
Oh, you're so great.
All right.
Thank you, thank you. I don't know anything about winter pansies.
My mother used to put them outside on her porch.
I know there's some pansies that will last through the winter, but I don't know anything about them and I don't know about planting them in this method to get them started. That I don't know. I don't know.
Mostly in the catalogs, they'll tell when to plant them.
Right.
They'll say
Well, the thing is like, yes,
they're an early flower. So I mentioned earlier than some flowers.
I don't know. I wish I knew the answer, but I can't answer that. Okay, then I'm covering these seeds with about a quarter inch of potting soil.
You know what's nice about this? It isn't even your house almost either. It's outdoors.
Yes, you could do this outdoors if it's a nice sunny day. Or once you get them planted, that's what makes a mess, doing all this planting like I'm making a mess right here. But then it's done. If you have a room that, say a bedroom that you're using to grow your plants in or stuff. It would probably be more messy. I don't know. It just, but once you get these planted, you don't have to do much with them at all, so. This is the messy part. Which I usually do in my basement. I set up a card table. Get my stuff all ready and plant them. Okay, here we go. This, I'll try to make this one a little bit neater. I think you could probably use some other kind of tape other than duct tape, maybe packing tape or something. But duct tape works very, very well, and it's cheap. You can go to Dollar Tree or something and pay $1.25 for a roll of tape. This is pretty much it, and I'd save your seed packets though, because you're going to want to refer back to the packets for actually planting your plants in your garden. That's it. So I've got one container of morning glories. And I did one of cherry tomatoes. You saw how easy it was. Wasn't that easy? I mean, how much easier can you get to plant your?
December, we have our last garden talk of the year, December 7th, garden planning and organization.